guy go?
Justin's also.
Okay. So I'm going to call this meeting to order, and it's scheduled to run between 7 and 8 o'clock. And I'd like to introduce Kyle Fox, our DPW Director. I'm Dawn Twamala. I'm the Deputy DPW Director and the Town Engineer. This is a local concerns meeting to present the preferred path alternative for the Souhegan River multipurpose path. Historically, in 2009, the Town Center Committee put together this Town Center trail map, pedestrian trail map, and the projects that will encompass by the Souhegan multipath trail are number 1 and number 2 on that trail map. And this project received a grant under the Transportation Alternatives Program, or the TAP. And we were one of 12 towns that received the grant out of a total of 43 communities. So it was highly competitive at the time. And this is going to be your opportunity to review the preferred path alternative for constructing. And then we will listen to your comments, your questions, and concerns with respect to the project. Tonight's presentation is made by the town's consulting engineering firm, which is Quantum Construction Consultants. And we have Lisa Martin, who is the president, and Jim Bouchard, which is the senior project manager, and he will be describing the path alternatives.
Excellent. Thank you all for coming out. And this is truly, Dawn mentioned preferred. We've got 4 alternatives that we want to present to you tonight of what we've done in bringing this to development. When we last met back, some 6 months ago, it was at the first local concerns meeting. Nothing had been done. I mean, that's the idea. What does everybody want? What do you need? And now we have taken those that information along with the criteria that is required by federal highway, because this is a federal government grant, and DOT, and try to develop a set of alternatives for consideration as we move forward in getting towards a little closer to a preferred alternative. There's still some work to be done at the state level with cultural resources, natural resources, and a variety of things. But I'm just trying to bring you folks up to date a little bit. As mentioned, real quick, we are a small consulting firm. You saw this back in the in June. We specialize only in DOT funded projects. We don't participate in the DOT level in their major projects. We work with municipalities on TAP grants, bridges, trails, roadways, and also joining us tonight is Christian Rainey. He is our project engineer on the project. And real quick, you've all seen this. I'm sure most of you. This is an aerial view put together by Kyle when he did the request for qualifications. And everything in red is current existing trails. To the west of the Everett Turnpike, and Everett Turnpike is in the middle. The green is what the project is, the project limits. It goes from the Everett Turnpike down to Watson Park. As most of you all know, adjacent to the Everett Turnpike is a pedestrian bridge that the town acquired some time ago and had it installed during the reconstruction of the Everett Turnpike, and that provides a crossing for the Souhegan from north to south. The existing trail picks up there, runs through the woods, and we're looking to upgrade the whole trail according to the requirements, of what we want to do. Well, that didn't come through very good, did it? Anyway, existing conditions. We had, there we go, existing condition. We've already done the existing conditions that I talked about. We established a purpose and need that followed out after the local concerns meeting of June 17th, and we have forwarded that. Purpose is to provide a non-motorized accessibility for residential areas to the central business district, to schools, and to the recreational facilities, i.e. Watson Park. The need, as defined here, is, you don't have it yet, okay, there we go. The need is to provide a connection from the Everett Turnpike, pedestrian bridges, and residential areas to the Central Business District, Watson Park, along the banks of the Souhegan River, i.e. basically in the path as it exists today. Yeah, this trail surface is about 2,500 feet. It will be hard surfaced according to the ADA requirements. Hard surface meaning stone dust, things like that. It doesn't have to be paved. So it's easily accessible by people in wheelchairs, utilizing walkers, any type of handicap that might, of somebody who wants to use it. Without this trail, people would have to access through school properties to the, which are to the east of the Everett Turnpike, go down Babusick Brook and around means you Babusick Brook, Babusick Road, and back down to Watson Park, which is about a mile of detour. But it also means you have to put people through the schools, and as we all know in today's world, having random people walking through school property now is not one of the best things to do while school is in session. So we developed 4 alternatives for the Souhegan River path, and one of them, as I was just explaining to Nelson, is basically the Souhegan River path from the FE Everett Turnpike to the fire station. Then we had, once we got to the fire station, once we crossed the impoundment area, we developed 3 different variations on a theme of getting from there to Watson Park. We had a connector alternative number 1, which goes down through the former sluiceway of the dam and underneath Chamberlain Bridge in the utilizing the existing arch, and then we connect with Watson Park. It also has some reconstructive work necessary to get for the existing cantilevered sidewalk that's out there, because we would be removing pieces of the support systems out there and constructing retaining walls. Watson Park Connector Alternative 1A was a concept we came to look at, maybe moving the trail. Once we came through the Chamberlain Bridge, underneath the Chamberlain Bridge, maybe we move a little further away. We still do the work required for cantilevered sidewalk repairs and reconstruction up on US Route 3, but maybe we move it out a little bit and use more of an embankment fill so we don't have to use as high retaining walls. And you'll see this illustrated later on as we go. Alternative 2 was a completely new one, with a completely variation from that. That is a surface route. Once we get across the former impoundment area, there's a drainage swale, was to get up to the fire station and go by surface route, utilizing existing and enhanced municipal sidewalks to cross US Route 3 at the existing entrance to Watson Park. And which, as you noted here, would have to include pedestrian signals. As we all know the traffic volume out on there. So that is a synopsis, real quick, of what we were trying to do. And let me get started in some of this as we go forward. The feet, I call the feet, the Everett Turnpike to the fire station. That's about 1,965 feet. The existing trail out there is 5 to 6 feet wide. We are looking to widen it to 8 feet because the intent was to be a shared use, pedestrians, bicyclists, and stuff like that. Basically, under the federal highway guidelines for trails, shared use should have 8 to 10 foot wide paths, so you don't have to worry about pedestrians and getting overrun by bicyclists. So we were looking at putting it in 8 foot. The other thing we're looking at trying to do out there is keep it on the existing alignment as it goes through the tree. It's such a beautiful run. We don't want to start cutting down trees unnecessarily to straighten this out and say, okay, well, now we want to make it straight. Keep it curvilinear, and which enhances the beauty and the desire to use the trail. There's also, as you go forward, you'll see there's a number of interconnects that come down from the school now, paths that come down. We want to maintain those. We want to provide good access to, a good interconnect there. So that use to get to the schools, that's one of the ideas of the purpose and need is, get access to the schools. So we'll keep those trails. And there's also a side trail that takes off and goes down by the river, and as you'll see going further, we're going to maintain that. That's not, it comes off the primary trail, and that would maintain those access. What we have to do is keep it ADA compliant. We have to, under federal, we have to be ADA compliant. That includes, for all the trails, that includes Grades, they're very specific on cross grades, maximum grade 12% for 10-foot max, and then have a 12% grade is your maximum grade. You can go for 10 feet. Then you have to have a resting area. You can go down to 10% grade, which, of linear run. Then you have to have, for 30 feet, then you have to have a resting area. So we have to look at all that. The cross grade, we know we're going to work with that. And we also look at, there's some footbridges out there. As we adjust the grade a little bit and just trying to smooth the path out, those will be replaced with culverts that would be sized to handle the drainage flows. They don't handle perennial streams. They're just drainage stuff. Once we got to the impound area where the dam was, what used to be all the impound, there is a drainage channel that runs down through there. Currently, we're showing that to be a 48-inch culvert. We did the hydraulic analysis on it, sized it accordingly. We also looked at some options as to what else could be done in there. Precast box culvert, and maybe a pre-engineered pedestrian bridge of 8-foot width that could be spanned with what we called geosynthetic soil reinforcement foundation, basically geogrids and stuff. We looked at that as an option. Though all those were just through discussions with the town, we put aside because of costs. It just, the 48-inch culvert can go in, it handles the water flow, it's easy to do. So that's what we're currently showing. So let me get into the first of the slides for the trail. They come down from starting at the Everett Turnpike and moving down towards the town. As you can see on the slide, we have the trail goes outside the existing trail and wraps around, comes back down. The lines you see sloping out are called slope limits. We have to build this trail up quite a bit, 12 to 15 feet, to make that ADA handicap grades, maximum grades. Right now, the trail has a 19% grade as it comes up to the bridge. Not allowed under ADA. We have to adjust it so it is ADA accessible. So that whole loop that comes out and comes back into the trail is all ADA accessible. As you can see, to the left of the screen on the profile, there's a bunch, 12%, at 1 in 12, 8%, and we've got resting areas to get this in. We're also replacing a footbridge with a 36-inch culvert, and basically mid-screen we come back onto the existing trail alignment and we continue forward through the project. Now the next slide picks up to the left of there. We're going to go under the power lines, and we haven't gotten the power lines. That's right. Now, the interconnect is what I was talking about. You can see they're coming in from the top of the screen. There is a trail that runs up to the school. That would be make sure that comes onto the property, onto the new trail. We would rebuild it. As you can see from the profile, the trail goes up and down. In some places it's a little steeper than ADA. We also had some footbridges, so what we're doing is putting in some culverts and kind of smoothing the trail out. The intent for the most of the trail as we go through, and you'll see, is to try to keep the elevation of the trail slightly above the existing, because as we smooth it out, put new gravels in, grade it off, and have it fairly uniform. Next slide is back where we get into, again, we're following the existing school, the existing trail alignment, another school connection that we pick up where some in slope embankments where the culverts are, or where the trail's a little bit higher, we slope off a little bit. Those are the lines that radiate perpendicular out from the trail. Excuse me. This slide gets us over to the impound area and how we get down. We drop down to it. There's a 48-inch culvert. And then what you can see to the right of the screen is where we start to pick up the trail alternatives of where we go from there. How do we get from, once we cross the impoundment, do we either go down into the headgate structures for the old dam and go through the sluiceway, and which is alternatives 1 and 1A, or do we at this point build a switchback ramp system to get up to the fire station, which is further detailed a little bit further on. So let me jump ahead. We can come back for questions and look at this, but let's try to get through a lot of this Alternative number one, this is the one that is the primary one of what the TAP grant was based on, was getting down through the sluiceway, using the sluiceway. This is about 440 feet of length. It's 8-foot width is what we showed. We're using the historic head gates. There's 2 head gates down in there. They're approximately 6 feet in wide, but they've got sufficient head. Right now they're 6'8", but we've been down there. We've dug down. There's like 15 inches of gravel. So if you take out the one has got a bulkhead, one is concrete. If we take out the head gate themselves and just leave the existing opening, we have sufficient headroom for people to get through on a bike, as it appears right now. And we continue to use the sluiceway as we get down through. We go down underneath Chamberlain Bridge. We get into that whole that whole labyrinth of beams and retaining walls that were originally built by the DOT in support of International Shoe. When that was there, the International Shoe, of course, left, and Harcross Chemicals came around and goes on. But all that was originally built by the DOT for loading docks and to support the roadway. So we're looking at taking that out. I'll have some details in a minute on what that's going to look like. But we take the retaining walls out. We put in a new retaining wall, slope it off, rebuild the cantilever sidewalk, and we have some MSE, what we call MSE, mechanically stabilized earth walls. These are the retaining walls we're talking about. They use grids to hold the face panels up. They basically reinforce the earth, and all the front panel does is just provide a nice closure to the system, because the earth is reinforced by the geogrids. It doesn't want to go anywhere. With this, we also have we have 2 of them. We have one underneath the once we get into the cantilever system, and then we have one over near the fire station, because the fire stations are roughly 132. We're down at elevation 120. That's 12 feet. We need to support some of the earth in there while we widen the trail out, try to get to the head gate structures and get down. So there's some work in there. There's also, as we all know, the fenced-in area from Watson Park is a activity use restricted area. It's classified by DES, i.e. it's soil contamination, and the path will go up through that area. So there's going to have to be some work with a soil management plan, health and safety plan, as we build that. But it's not impediment to it. It's just an issue that has to be dealt with. So let's jump into this. Let's get to the plan that covers all of that. As you can see, we started, this picks up from where we had the split, where the fire station, the trail comes down, it splits through the head gates, goes under the bridge, and then runs in basically a northwesterly direction along the existing road, US Route 3, in gray. You can see, very light gray, you can see the retaining walls. Path is on some of those retaining walls. You can see some cross beams. That's all material that will be removed. A new retaining wall put in, which is the dark black line between the path and US Route 3. Again, it's that MSE wall, mechanically stabilized earth, and the path. And this is the gradient of the path, as you can see. Once we come out, come through the head gate, start up through. A little hard to read, but that's about a 5% gradient. And this is pretty much, this follows what Kyle and various people, when they put together the TAP grant, this was the alignment that was shown. What we did as alternate 1A, and basically following the same thing, it's going to go back under, but as I said, we moved it a little further away. It's a little longer path. We tried to decrease the amount of MSE walls, the heights of MSE walls that had to be built in the vicinity of US Route 3. It pushed the path further into the AUR site, so there's more work with the contaminated soils. What happens once you get into those have to be removed. They have to be left on site. They have to be put, stockpiled, recovered again, and left in a stabilized mode. And again, the same thing as we had on alternate 1. You got to work with permitting, health and safety plan, soil management plan for the AUR. And that plan sort of looks like this. As you can see, everything to the left of US Route 3 is identical. Everything to the right, instead of being very close and superimposed over all the retaining wall structures and existing concrete beams that are there now, which are the light gray, we kind of pushed them away a little bit and they're still being removed, partially removed in this case, and the slope embankment put in. The work for the reconstructing the sidewalk, because we're taking this stuff out and building it on grade on the sidewalk along Route 3, that's still part of the process. Now, let me give you a slide and try to update you of what the differences are between alternative 1 and 1A in that vicinity. At the top of the screen for you is alternative 1A. We've got them flipped here, but and I apologize for that. But alternative 1A pushes the retaining wall further away from US Route 3. It's a smaller, the average height is much less than what is going to be in alternative 1. Now, alternative 1 is on the one is the one immediately below. As you can see, the path is closer to US Route 3. The average height of the retaining wall is significantly higher. But the amount of embankment fill that's required is less. We're still going to be putting behind either one of these walls drainage systems to drain groundwater so you don't have hydrostatic pressure, and tied into an existing 12-inch pipe, or no, excuse me, be a proposed 12-inch pipe. And over there in that area, there is an existing, another existing sluiceway that runs under the concrete slabs, and I don't know if I'm running out of power, if that's me. Okay, no. And that's what that would outlet into, is that channel, to take the water that collects in behind any, rainwater coming off on the embankment, soaking down through, so we don't have hydrostatic pressure. It goes down in through there. All of Route 3 work is still identically the same. You've got to take the cantilevered sidewalk off. You've got to infill with soil embankments. Then you've got to rebuild the sidewalk. And then the trail is approximately the same elevation as we go through the project in this area, just a little longer run out through the AUR site. I know I'm speeding through this, but I'm trying to get us all up to date. Now, alternative 2. This is the surface route that we looked at. It's approximately 750 feet long. It utilizes existing sidewalks on Route 3. The west side of Route 3. There are areas where there is no sidewalk, down towards Buckley's Cafe, if you're familiar with that, the fire station. There is also, as you get closer towards Babusak Lake Road, towards the entrance to Watson Park, there's a wide driveway that doesn't have a sidewalk. We'll have to put a sidewalk in there. Municipal sidewalks are 5 feet, so there would still be what we construct would be 5 feet. What is included in this, as I mentioned earlier, is we've got to come from a trail elevation down by the impoundment area of about 120 to something that's approximately at the fire station about 132, and it's a very steep slope right now. And to make that accessible, we have to build this handicap, I should say, switchback ramp system built at maximum gradient. Again, 12% goes 10 feet, have a level area. And then we got, it switches back on its massive concrete structure. We get up onto the elevation adjacent to the fire station. There's not a lot of land area there. Real estate's at a premium right there. It was all taken up by the river and the dam. So that level area is very tight. And if we're going to put an 8-foot sidewalk in there, it's very close to the building. And because of power poles at US Route 3 and a fire station, fire hydrant, as you see earlier, we have to kind of route around that area, so it causes impacts to the fire department, because we're going to lose the parking that, if you're familiar, is out in front there, in front of the station now, and then cross up in front of Buckley's. And currently, right now, that excuse me, I apologize for that. That combined opening for Buckley's Cafe and the fire station is about 135 feet, which is significant. That's for pedestrians. That's just much too big. So. We looked at and coordinated with the town about closing that up a little bit, putting an island between Buckley's and driveway and the fire station, still allowing movements for the fire trucks to get out, but at least you have a resting area for in between both places. So you don't have to scurry across the fire department, across Buckley's, and all the people coming in to either location. As you continue up Route 3, going towards Babusak, we were going to cross over at Watson Park, put a new crosswalk in there. There isn't one now that would have to be put in. And with that, we'd have to have what we call hawk signals. These are high-intensity activated crosswalk beacons. And they're basically a set of multiple on each direction. There's 5 lights. They're dark until somebody walks over and says, I want to cross. And then what happens is they'll go to a flashing yellow, then they'll go to a solid yellow, then it'll go to a red, and then it'll activate for people to go across, and then it goes back into, it reverses. Once the proper clearance is given for those people, it goes back into flashing yellow, and then just goes dark again, and traffic can pick up and go. Those, yeah, and there'd be two beacons for each direction. So here's what that plan looks like. And this is a 2-parter. We start down at the fire station. As you can see up on to the left of the screen, and up there is this massive switchback system. It's like the something you would envision for San Francisco. If you're, how do I get up the mountain? And that's what we're doing. We're going up a mountain. We're going up Fire Station Mountain. And then once we get to the top of it, you can see the new 8-foot path, how close it is to the building. Causes a hardship for the fire station because that's an access route for them for for their activities when they do station call out or station activities like fire hoses and running down back for operations. But anyway, and then we as I mentioned, it goes to get across. We have to cross continue along the front of the fire station where the parking spots are. They get vacated, and then we cross Route 3 across the fire station entrance. This next plan picks up from just to between Buckley's and the fire station, and as you can see at Buckley's, right now what was all open, we're looking to put in. It would have to have some sort of pedestrian safety. Put in a new island, new sidewalk, and excuse me, narrow up the entrance to Buckley's Cafe, which also means some reconfiguration of parking in front of Buckley's Cafe now. It basically it also does serve to have defined movements for Buckley's Cafe and the fire station. They're kind of blended right now when you get towards the two of them, but that would be required for us. As I mentioned, a lot of the sidewalk that exists now was recently rebuilt, and we continue to utilize, no changes. But there are areas, as I mentioned, at Buckley's Cafe, in between Buckley's Cafe and Buckley's Steakhouse, there's also a need for an island in there between those two driveways and for a pedestrian, for a sidewalk. And then further up to the north, between that Y driveway, we'd have to build a new sidewalk between both legs of the Y. And then at Watson Park, here's where you see the painted crosswalk coming down and the signals. That's how you would get into Watson Park, or out of Watson Park and get onto the trail system. The problem with that is, again, this is supposed to be shared use, and these are some of the evaluations. We do a whole alternative analysis. What are the pros? What are the cons? This one has a lot of cons with it, more than pros. Municipal sidewalks 5 feet wide. Bike traffic's not allowed on the sidewalk. There's not really good bike lanes defined or ability to put bike lanes in on US Route 3. You got a set of hawk signals, which are about 500 feet to the south of the ones that go into the plaza, which are then, those signals are at the Bellboy. Excuse me, and those are about 500 to 600 feet from Babusick Lake Road. So you just introduce a whole series of conflicts with us. So these are some of the things that we were looking at as we go forward, and this is what goes into our the process of doing a feasibility review. There's also another alternative we're bound to do by federal highways. No use to even showing it. It's called the no build. What happens if you do a no build? Well, a no build is you don't have the connectivity to get from the Everett Turnpike to Watson Park, so it doesn't meet the purpose and need. But you have to say, what is the impacts of the no build? And in our feasibility report that will get generated when all this is done, with all these diagrams and everything in there, that will be cited as an alternative that doesn't meet the purpose and need. Therefore, it is not a preferred alternative. And the idea of all this is we're working, as Don mentioned, we're trying to get to the preferred alternative as quickly as we can. We have to look at natural resources and cultural resource impacts, which is starting with the DOT process now. And I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of what the feasibility study includes everybody, you know, a lot of people think, oh, just come up with a trail and you can do all this. Well, we did the local concerns meeting. That was done. We identified the design criteria. As I mentioned, Federal Highway has a nice 270, 340 page book of trails criteria. Again, 8 feet wide, cross slopes, maximum running slopes. That set most of our design criteria, as we said, 8 feet, and you know, for grades for trying to climb mountains at 1 in 12 up to 12%. Existing conditions, what we did is we threw available, there was a plethora, I hate that word, it's been used too many times, but anyway, there's been a litany of stuff available through the town resources they've had that we were able, in DOT, we were able to pull together, in fact, going back to, you know, well, it doesn't show, all the, a lot of the retaining walls and a lot of the cross beams that we identified earlier. The town had developed a plan. We also went back to the 1934 DOT plans. We took the dam plans. We put all this together to make what you saw as existing conditions as we ran through all these sheets. That's been done. We had to do the hydraulic and analysis. Well, okay. Hydraulic analysis. Huh? It's not there. It's not there. I don't know what's going on. We did the hydraulic analysis and for the impoundment area, and we came up with a, you know, the sizing of the 48-inch culvert. This next one, I even have a printout that doesn't have that. But anyway, we're in the process of doing the alternative study and preparing the cost estimates, and evaluating. We've had a town and DOT review meeting. We brought all these down to the town. We sat and talked about them. We made some revisions before we went up and met with DOT collectively. Kyle, Dawn, Lisa, and I, and Christian, and sat in a room with DOT representatives and went through all this, got their feedback, got some insight, got some additional directives where we should be going. And now we're moving into what we call the environmental and cultural resources. We're meeting with, under the Bureau of Environment with the DOT. We'll be meeting with the Natural Resource Commission and the Cultural Resources Commission. Natural Resources, of course, environment. Cultural resources dealing with archaeological and historical, and the dam is historic. The form, what's left of the dam remnants is historical. I don't know what's going on here, but anyway. Then, once we get done through most of that process and we get through those considerations, we're at a point of what we call picking the preferred alternative. The preferred alternative, as defined by Federal Highway, and which DOT has to embrace, is the least environmentally damaged preferred alternative. You didn't hear dollars. You heard least environmentally damaging preferred alternative. So that's what's going to define what is the alternative that meets the purpose and the need, as we established earlier, and has least impacts to the environment. Our environment being natural resources, cultural resources. And that will be where we move forward with. Leaning, as we all see, and most of you people involved, we're leaning towards what was originally in the TAP grant, alternative 1. That's going to be, as we see it, that's going to be the preferred alternative. There's too many cons with the surface route. There's too much impact to existing facilities, especially the fire station, as to be a sound alternative. But that's the process we have to go through. Then once we get that alternative, that preferred alternative, we have to go through and define for the DOT right-of-way and easements. Well, very, very nice situation with Merrimack. It's either on school property or it's on town property. So we're not going to be having to do a lot of easements, identifying a lot of easements that have to be negotiated. Cost estimate, last thing, verify the budget. Okay, we've gotten the preferred alternative. This is scoped out. Now we verify a budget. And then we all come back again and we do the public information meeting of the preferred alternative with numbers, with everything, and get your input. Basically say this is what we're doing with, and then we submit the feasibility study report. Schedule-wise, as I was talking with Nelson, we are running behind on that. That was based on a decision basically by myself, Quantum. There was a outside entity that had an interest in doing some work within the U.S. Route 3 area that would have had a significant impact to our existing conditions. So we took a step backwards to see what was going to happen, and that didn't happen. It's been their work's been postponed. So we've redone the schedule such that the design will be completed this year, and construction be done in 2018. That is the schedule right now, currently as listed on the DOT's advertising schedule. That's what's out there. So that's the schedule we're working forward to now that we've picked back up, got the ball rolling again, and we're trying to move as fast as we can. So that leads me to this nice little one where it's much louder than I am. Questions? I've tried to give you a brief summary in 35 minutes. Any questions, comments you want to throw out? That's just trying to bring everybody up to date where we are. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I do have a comment.
Can we pass you a microphone? Because we are being recorded for posterity, so.
I have a comment about the, what do you call that blinking light?
The hawk signals. Oh, it's not on. Hey. On now.
Sounds right. I have a question about the walk light and so forth.
Sure.
That is such a I have a whole room full of advisors here.
Feel like you're working in an office, right?
Yeah. An honest job. That is like the most dangerous spot in town, it seems to me. The fire chief, the fireman here would know better than I, but there's intersections coming in, the park exit, the lobster boat, Loop Road going off, the CVS light, and Woodbury coming down. Then additionally to that, there's some kind of a walk light. I almost got hit once simply walking along the side of DW Highway there because people go too fast for the road. I think just that alone would make me think that it was inappropriate.
Appreciate the comment. That's some of the concerns that we have raised. Nelson?
Thank you. My name is Nelson Disco, and I'm chairman of the Town Center Committee. And speaking for the committee, I think it would be unanimous of the committee to prefer alternate one, which is the original proposed route using the sluiceway. Whether you use 1 or 1A, I think really doesn't matter too much. I think maybe some cost or environmental considerations might push you one way or another, and I think that would be okay. I do have one comment on the crossing of the waterway, the seasonal waterway that passes through the former wetland that was part of the impoundment of the old dam. In our original discussions with that, we had thought of making something there that looked nice. And by that I mean we had in mind sort of a decorative bridge or something. I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but something more than a 48-inch culvert, Barreda steel culvert. We're just now replacing some steel culverts in other parts of town. I don't know if there's a more aesthetic way to handle that crossing. And again, it may have to do with budget. So
we looked at, as I mentioned, the 48-inch culvert would be what we call HDPE, high-density polyethylene. It won't rot out. The other thing is, Nelson, so we don't have a tremendous amount of fill going out there. We looked at building mortared rubble masonry head walls. So it would be characteristic of the existing bridge. The existing bridge is granite, but this would be mortared rubble. So it'd be a very good-looking, attractive head wall. And because of the head walls and the drop-off, we would definitely have to have chain link fence on both sides of the trail for the protection of people, so they didn't fall off and fall into the. But that's what we looked at. And we also did look at the price of a 35-foot bridge, and we certainly can revisit with Kyle. Sir?
My wife and I have been through every swamp in Florida on bog walks, and in Maine and elsewhere. Up in Bedford, there's a nice little bog walk. It's
Pulpit
narrow,
Rock.
but
Yep.
with the pressure-treated lumber that's available today, I would think that an 8-foot wide bog walk with a deck for people to look out over the, back out over the swamp would be almost with no need for it could just span much more than 48 inches without a bridge and be a bog walk all the way to the fire station. And I would think the construction of that would be, right off the top of my head, less expensive and better looking than to try to fill it in and build a wall.
Yeah, build the mortar rubble head walls. Yeah, I agree with you. It is definitely something that we didn't consider, and it certainly can pursue that further. Sure.
One of the reasons that we didn't look at that type of structure is there's a big gap right now. There's a span that you have to span probably at least 20 feet. It's a drop-off. So that it would be more of a wooden bridge rather than a bog walk at that location. But again, it can be considered.
Culvert would work.
Because we're filling in the hole.
We'd be filling in the area around.
So what you're saying is if we did the bog walk, we would still have to fill in that area, and we would have to have some kind of abutment.
Well, allow us to take a look at it and comment back to Kyle.
Would appreciate it.
My name's George May. I'm with the Sohegan Watershed Association.
Yes.
And two things. One, I think the alternative one is the preferable as opposed to the surface crossing there. The second thing is the culverts along the river itself. And I'd ask if you would consider putting in culverts, like 3-sided box culverts, so that you still retain the brook itself for the passage of whatever's in there, whatever kind of newts or salamanders or frogs or turtles or whatever that can get through there. The alternative to that would be putting in perhaps a bigger culvert and filling it with gravel, halfway up to turn it back into a brook. So I'd ask you if you could consider that.
The 48-inch culvert at the impound, or are you talking all the culverts?
All the culverts.
Okay. Because most of the other ones on the trail are handling drainage runoff, not even a seasonal. But yeah, we could evaluate that.
So what kind of permitting do we need to be thinking about in order to put this in?
In response to that, Tim, we're going to have to, as we get into, once we come out of the feasibility stage and get into the preliminary design phase, we're going to be looking at DES permits for dredge and fill, for culvert crossing. We're going to be, depending on what comes out of cultural resources, as to how they feel this impact is to the existing headgate structure. They may feel even though it's preserving it and utilizing it and making it available for everybody to see, they could take an effect that it could be some sort of an effect, whether it be adverse effect or minimal effect. We might have to, pursue some sort of an agreement through the SHPO office on that. But so that's what we see initially coming up. Anything on Route 3, which we highly doubt would be alternative 2, would also then need permitting through the Bureau of Traffic and DOT. But as we've all spoken about, we don't see that as being a high alternative. It was just we did consider it. So, assuming alternative number one, it's we're basically the primary is dealing with our local DES DES for wetlands.
Okay, so along that line, so there is a 1 acre parcel that's in the path of this that we, as the Conservation Commission purchased in order to allow this trail to happen, as well as other reasons and stuff like that. And I think we'd like to. I think I won't speak for the commission because I don't have the authority to do that, but I would encourage the process to include the commission at least through that path, as well as the fact that we'll be involved with DES permitting of wetland crossings and things like that. So we'd like to partner and be a positive aspect of this, not a roadblock to this, I suspect.
No, that's fine. That's what we'd be, that's what we would intend to do.
Yeah, so.
Right now, this is just, like I said, we have not done formal survey. We've used whatever formal survey's been done. We'll have to do full surveys. We'll have to do delineation of jurisdictional wetlands. That would all happen at the preliminary design phase.
So the other comment that I wanted to talk about is the feeder trails that you've mentioned. Is there any intention to do upgrades or changes to those feeder trails as part of this project?
No. It's basically to try to upgrade the existing trail to the maximum capabilities we can with the funding that's available to get from the Everett Turnpike to Watson Park.
All right. That's what I thought the answer was, but I just wanted to double check and have it be said because some of those trails are poorly done
Yes.
and have their own drainage and erosion issues and other things like that. So,
yeah.
and they date back to when I was a young lad running down to the river from the high school and stuff. So.
Sir.
To build upon what Tim was speaking about, a lot of the trails that connect to this proposed trail,
Yes.
as well as once you reach the Everett Turnpike or are under the Everett Turnpike, they're not ADA accessible. So you're making a trail ADA accessible that goes to trails that are not accessible. If the budget is a concern, there is a trail that exists from the Everett Turnpike down to, where you're talking about putting the culvert.
Yeah.
Would you focus the funds starting there and getting into Watson Park first? If
I cannot say that we have not considered that. We have talked about that for budget constraints, so that may be where, pick up where that nice little sign says, to be continued. That could become, the point where we start to go forward. And that is in the consideration, which is then just a subset of whatever we've already shown as the Souhegan River Trail. It just, it's the town has asked the DOT as to the availability of funds, and because of what's required at Everett Turnpike, and if the costs are getting to be more than what the grant application is, that they haven't given us a firm answer back on that. So so one of the strong considerations is let's get through, let's get across the impoundment area, and maybe that's where this ends.
Okay, great.
John Manueli, I'm the fire marshal in town. We looked at the plans yesterday with, the fire chief and I rather looked at the plans yesterday with Dawn and Kyle. We are absolutely in favor of 1 or 1A. We are absolutely not in favor of the surface route for multiple reasons, the primary one being public safety. Having pedestrians crossing in front of a very busy and active fire station is just not a good idea. We do have a busy station because we are not only the fire station, we are also the building department. We have a steady stream of contractors' trucks, plumbers, propane delivery, pulling permits, coming in all day long, parking in front of the station in the 4 spots that we would be losing if this does go across. We do have a shortage of parking at this time at the station. There would be no spots available out front for the contractors to park at, which would require them to park in the rear of the station, which is, again, a shortage of parking. And it's also the spot of our only convenient handicap spot. We'd be losing all of that. We'd be requiring contractors to now pass in front of the apparatus bays where trucks are constantly coming in and out and ambulances. It's not a good idea in general for that. The other issue is that where the path would go is an area that we use for hose training. We go from the hydrant that's on Daniel Webster Highway to the rear of the station. That enables us to do training with the larger diameter hose, and in the event we have to go for a call, we can leave the hose there and not have to disconnect it or anything, so we can save time. That would be a hazard for anybody coming up through that area for a trip hazard, and also a pressurized hose. We deal with when we're wearing protective gear. Obviously, hikers are not going to have protective gear, so it's a hazard for that. We also use that area for ladder training. The rest of the building has either doors or cars parked against it, so we will put ground ladders on that area. Again, a hazard for the public. We just feel that it's a bad idea in general. The proposed signal, as Councilwoman Flood mentioned, would back traffic up in front of the station. Currently, the signal at Cornell's Plaza on a busy Friday night, as everyone here knows, traffic will back up in front of the station, giving us a difficult time trying to head north on Daniel Webster Highway. With that much closer, it's just going to bring it even further back. So at this point, there's multiple reasons why you're absolutely against proposal number 2.
No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you put that very succinctly in your letter. As for the hawk signals, we did note that it would have to have a fire override, whether it be hardwired or, but it, just so you can open those lanes up. But it doesn't alleviate the problem.
Right.
So appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
This is exciting.
Oh, thank you. It is.
One more question, Jim. When is the next public event in your? You gave a listing there, but I didn't get a time frame.
It'll be a couple of months out, to be honest with you.
A couple of months from now?
Yeah, it could be cultural resources and natural resources, which we have to go before. We have to do prepare some paperwork for them. It's in the process. Their schedule is very tight, and cultural resources tends to meet once a month. Natural resources about once a month, so it's we might be put off for a month or two. So a couple of months. It would be at least, I would tend to say, a minimum of 3 months before we meet again. And that, we're in one of the hardest parts of the whole thing. Is just dealing with all these entities. Once we have everything drawn together, we get this done. We move into the design stage. That actually is a little better for all of us because we all know what we're dealing with. So,
Thank you.
anybody else? Sir.
Does your company have a preference to 1 or 1A?
We are leaning towards 1 probably. Yeah, 1A we like from a constructability, but you got more embankment. To be honest, right now we're mixed either way. We'll wait and see how it all shakes out. But 1 and 1A, they're both good alternatives. 1 we prefer because it has less impact into the AUR site. All the pile of stockpile of chemicals, and that is a primary reason for us to say that alternative 1 would be a better one.
So just east of the U.S. Route 3, where 1A and 1, they vary, there's a large area of invasive species. Any thoughts on incorporating the removal of the entire area of invasives? The
invasive species would, at least, Tim, within the whole work area, would have to be removed. Right. And we know what that means. They'll come right back again. But, that's something that we can put in for consideration.
Yeah, because 1A would remove more of them than 1 would.
Yes, it would. So. And very much so. But we have to, the funding agencies, we have to deal with them what we can do. We can always see what we can get. And it could be done as non-participatory, as, the contract will pay for this much, how much is it to remove the rest of it, and that becomes a decision for the town to make.
Exactly, yep.
Well, excellent. It's almost 8 o'clock. I think it's good. I appreciate all the good comments the second time around. It's It's good to see something, I think a little harder for you to visualize. So, thanks all.
Thank you.